What kind is it?
Recording in progress.
So he not hear the news that he's. Yeah. Yeah, I think. I like him.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you wanted to.
No, I like you, since you said very nice job talking.
What's that?
You did a good job of kind of we're discussing.
What did I say? I don't remember any of that stuff.
You haven't read it.
I don't remember any of that stuff.
We talked about how we're gonna present you.
I did.
Great. Larry, looking forward to hearing things like wait to see things happening last week.
It's the last chance I have to keep you on.
Sorry to get there, but
Yeah, it's a good class.
yeah.
And we have some video stuff.
You're like, you can't wait. You can't wait.
We'll do it again at some point, but it was well attended.
Wow, the peanut gallery is well attended.
Come to. Everybody hears more and more about it.
Right. That's the idea.
I know, right? Early voting.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wrote it. Saw the yearbook with one. Yeah.
You was a hero.
Yeah, he's I think it's the fourth or fifth grade class, but and then I met with all the principal and that's right, everybody. They learned it was my cat. And
They
like,
didn't know?
I raised up was like some sort of demigod.
You must have raised him right.
All right, we are going to reconvene the city council meeting from closed session and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The council is returning from closed session. We do have one item to report, and I think it's very good news. We have a verbal acceptance from a new city manager who will be beginning in January of 2025. We wanted to wait until after the holidays. Once we have a signed agreement and more details, we'll share them with the city. And then other than that, we have no actions to report from the closed session. All right, so with that, let's just get right into tonight's agenda, approval of the agenda. So are there any questions or comments from the councilors about the agenda? Okay. All right, any questions or comments from members of the community regarding tonight's agenda?
Is that right?
We're going to talk about consent agenda here, so if you want to mention anything there, we can.
Not now.
Right, not now. Okay, all
Move
right,
to approve the agenda for this evening.
all right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we have minutes to review tonight from October 8th. Are there any questions or comments from the council on minutes? I didn't see any problem with them. Okay. Any comments or questions from the public on the minutes from October 8th? All right, seeing none, back to the council for approval.
I move to approve the minutes of August 8th.
Yeah, October 8th.
Second.
All right, Katie seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Terrific. All right, next up are council reports and committee assignments. I'll start with, to my right, Jack.
I have nothing to report.
Okay.
So Jack West and I and Eli met with the Yurok Tribal Council last week, I think it was, week before. Sorry, last week, thank you. And what we did was discuss some of the projects that are going on, but also really asked for a replacement. We had a tribal council member on several of the Trinidad city activities, most notably the Trails Committee. So they are working on finding a tribal council member to join the Trails Committee to include their voice in the Trails activities. And they also very much asked for the city of Trinidad to consider the Yurok tribe in many, if not all of our activities. So I just wanted to pass that on, that there was a sort of a uniform interest from the Yurok Tribal Council that Trinidad give a little more voice to the Yurok community and include them in the decisions made in our city. So I just wanted to pass that on. And then Humboldt Transit Authority, I missed the meeting, so my work got in the way, so I'm unable to report on that. The Redwood Region Economic Development Commission continues to work with local agencies on the wind project in the region. That's something that we're all part of, and so they're a big part in the wind energy and bringing that to the community. And there was a presentation by the funding source, the Headwaters Fund, that was very enlightening about how economic development is supported in this community. And so there's a continued large investment in this community for economic development. So I just wanted to pass that along as well.
Nothing to report. The Animal Advisory Committee's meeting tomorrow night here at 6 o'clock. It's open to the public.
Although I'll be leaving the council after December, I have asked to stay on to help with the trail committee. So we're going to try to bring back the trail committee that we've lost a little bit because of many things in my life. So I didn't get get a meeting going, but we are going to meet hopefully in January and try to put together a final look at some various kinds of hosts, and seem to have a good crew that wants to join us. So the next meeting will be in January, and we'll continue working on the trails, try to get it ready for the summer.
I just have a couple of quick ones. The Humboldt County Association of Governments, or HCOG, they met a couple of weeks ago and I attended the meeting. Probably the most salient things were the Humboldt Bay Trail update. So the trail that's going from Arcata to Eureka that we're all seeing work on, they're making really good progress, but they do feel like they're going to have to stop work for the winter rains, and their estimated completion date now is May 31st, 2025. They're also working on the Hickshari Trail from Eureka to College of the Redwood. And that'll be a trail on the rail corridor that starts after that Thule parking lot. And, but that's a long-term project. I think they're estimating 2030 for that. But eventually you'll be able to kind of ride your bike from Trinidad all the way to the College of the Redwoods. So that's kind of cool. Let's see. Ride Humboldt still has implemented some more low-cost transit, like Arcata to Reading for $2 and so forth, and $2 to Ukiah. So their executive director, however, resigned in the last meeting, and so they are searching for a new executive director. So that's kind of what was going on.
Okay.
Pardon, yes.
Yeah.
We had a brief meeting with California State Parks. Eli and I met with them. They're going to have some availability, they think, next summer to subcontract to the city if we need help with trail work. So that's pretty exciting. We had them look just from the top of Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail, and we also walked the Van Wyck Trail. They made some suggestions on Van Wyck, one of which our city engineer doesn't think would work, but their basic recommendation was to go up slope and then also maybe put in steps. They feel like it's pretty slumpy as it is, technical term. So that, definitely would, going up slope was kind of their main recommendation. And then the last thing is the community emergency response team. We have Larry Goldberg here tonight. He'll be presenting on that. So that's it for me.
Can I add something real quick?
Yes.
Just to sort of reach out to the community, and I see Bryce and Carrie are here. The Humboldt Transit Authority and the Redwood Region Economic Development, I've been on both of those boards for the last 8 years. And even though Trinidad is a small town, we're not major contributors to the county overall. I do encourage to have an active Trinidad voice in both of those committees. The Redwood Region Economic Development is just everywhere, from Oric to Scotia and everywhere in between. And having a Trinidad voice, I think, is really critical. And I know that economic development, we're 1 square mile and we don't have a lot of vacant lots, but economic development is still a concern or a consideration for our community. And certainly transit, getting from here to anywhere else is challenging. And Humboldt Transit Authority is doing a lot of work that's actually getting recognized by the state for its, connecting to other systems and whatnot. So I really encourage some strong involvement from Trinidad moving forward in the new year. So I just want to put that out there.
Now you've reminded me of something else. So for Redwood Economic Development, I think you and I spoke about they may have grant opportunities, and so we can connect with Angela, but we were thinking that maybe Eli had a good idea to get some grant funding for economic development for Trinidad. So we could get a small grant for them to kind of evaluate how we could improve, business here in Trinidad for our local small businesses and so forth. And that could be advantageous.
The Headwaters Fund, which is the main contributor to Redwood Region Economic Development, like you said, actually that was our last presentation in our last meeting, and they said, it's funny with granting agencies, they're like, please come and take our money. It's a lot of work to ask for money, right? Angela is over there nodding for sure. And they literally said, please come ask us for money and we'll help you develop an economic development plan. That's a gift, right? That an organization that has a ton of money wants to help you figure out how to ask for a ton of money. So really encourage that involvement.
Yeah.
So And I pass that on to Cheryl, so it's not lost on my poor memory. It's actually in Cheryl's
It's on our list.
wheelhouse, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, any questions or comments from the council on the committee reports? Seeing none, any questions or comments from the public, members of the public on any of the committee reports? All right, then we will move on to tonight's staff reports from the city manager and the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office. Do we have Lieutenant McCall on tonight?
Yeah, so Josh is not here from
Okay.
Sheriff's Office. So my staff report, first of all, the water tank and pipeline project, the contractor poured the tank foundation for the new 250,000 gallon steel tank this past Saturday. Also, the polymer pump at the plant, the water plant, had to be replaced. And the one we replaced it with is a little bit larger and seems to be functioning very well. And some of the comments I got from staff is that the water seems to be at the peak, is the best they've ever seen over the years. We're also asking water customers, and going to do a mailer, and we included it on the water bill, asking them to conserve water since we are transitioning to the new 250,000 gallon steel water tank. So in the meantime, instead of having two 150,000 gallon tanks that are redwood that are operating, we only have one. So we hope people can conserve till basically March. The Trinidad had steps. We have RCAA working on that project. They've replaced most of the steps. They are going to replace a few more, and it should be done, weather permitting, within the next couple of weeks. Also, the Axel Ingram Memorial Trail, we wanted to do vegetation removal. We got the green light this past week after we got all of the entities saying that, yes, we can move forward. So we notified RCAA, who's going to be doing the work, and according per the weather and also getting the contract in place, then they'll start doing that vegetation removal, which will help show us what the future trail will look like for the Axel Ingram Memorial Trail, because the base of it needs to be redirected where it is a safer entry to the beach. And also a historic one, because that's the original trail that was used by the Huron. Also, speed humps have been placed on View Street, and they started doing Ocean also. Could be done hopefully by the end of the week, depending on the rain. So we are going to be having rain at least for the next foreseeable week, on and off. And then the holidays, Town Hall was closed yesterday for Veterans Day, and will be closed not only Thanksgiving, but the day after Thanksgiving, that Friday. So we just wanted to inform the public, this will be the second year that we're doing that as a holiday on that so-called Black Friday. And then the Chamber is planning their second New Year's Eve celebration. It'll be here in Town Hall. So that's December 31st. And last year they had a great turnout and real good band. People who were here enjoyed it. So that's all that I have right now. If there's any questions, I'll entertain them.
Just a quick question about the speed humps, Eli.
Yeah.
I know I walked up there today and I saw the ones on View, and I believe, do we have one on Ocean? And then the second one, do we have a timeline for the second one yet? I know we're still in
Like I said, with
dialogue.
the weather, yeah, we'll be doing it depending on the weather within the next week or two.
Okay, so there's no other holdup at this point?
Well, we're going to clarify exactly the location of it,
Okay,
but
the
it will
homeowners
happen.
and,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's between two parcels right now.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. But the plan is to go ahead, it just may move slightly one way or the
Right.
other.
Exactly.
All right, I just wanted to confirm that because I got some questions about it.
Sure.
Any other questions for Eli from the council? All right, questions on the staff report from members of the community? Please come, would you mind coming to the podium so they can hear on Zoom? Appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah, just a quick question. I'm curious if you guys plan on putting any of the speed bumps leading up to the school on Main Street out here.
Yeah, no, there are no plans for that.
Do you think there ever would be? I mean, people drive pretty fast coming in.
Yeah, I don't think so because we want traffic to go from Main Street to Trinity Street to the harbor on Edwards.
Mhm.
And so you're gonna have all kinds of like either semi trucks, trucks with pulling boats.
Yeah.
You'll have buses and so on. So that's the commercial traffic route. The reason that we put it on Ocean and View is that we didn't want commercial traffic going on the residential streets.
And the bulb outs were meant to slow traffic down. So if we're still experiencing high speed, we should let our traffic engineer know that maybe there's other techniques we might need to employ to slow people down.
Yeah, and I was thinking we should look at the traffic study again. We could look at that again and see, because we did have a traffic study and I think it was a couple months ago that they reported out to us. And it did show the number of, the traffic flow and volume and also speeds. And we should take another look at that. But we didn't see a lot of speeding in the traffic study, but that's just that's a point in time, but
I'm
yeah.
sure it's just maybe the few people that you're really like, oh my gosh.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess that doesn't make the average.
It does happen. I know, yeah. Gabe and I have been standing out in front of the town hall before and, kind of yelling at people, so. Like, slow down.
No, it's a good point. It's around that corner because people zip around, they don't see the school until the last minute and they're already going pretty quick. So maybe we can ask our engineer to see how we can slow the people around the corner.
Yeah.
I was gonna say prior to the corner, it seems like people are coming in pretty quick, and then sometimes when they see the school, they slow down, sometimes.
It wouldn't hurt to put a school zone ahead kind of thing, maybe on I can never remember the name of the streets around here, the one coming in from the freeway. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Main Street, right by Stagecoach.
Yeah.
I
We
had
don't have 15 mile an hour and we have the school zone sign, but so we'll look at it. Yeah, I think we need to look at it again.
I've also had a request to look at Main Street, see if there are ways to slow traffic a little bit more on Main Street, which would help keep traffic slow all the way to that corner. So that's another place we could start.
Would it be possible to have actually a gate? Because a lot of the children just run out the school and there's no like separation between them and the street. So is there any way to have like some type of railing?
That's something that, of course, the school.
Yeah, we could work with
Okay,
Dr.
that's not
Lisa
city.
about
That
that
would-
principle.
okay.
Another thing, we can ever get a roundabout, but right off the freeway and get rid of the stop
Like-
signs. Yeah, it would also be, that's something we've talked about for quite a while, that maybe a potential way of slowing things down as they come into the city. So all these ways of slowing traffic would be, we'll be looking at probably in the future, so.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Other comments about the staff report from the public? All right, seeing none, then I'm going to go on to items from the floor. And at this time, members of the public can comment on things that are not on tonight's agenda. So I'll open up to the public to anything you'd like to comment on. All right, I don't see any hands raised. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to tonight's consent agenda. I'll bring it to the council first. Are we comfortable with the consent agenda?
I wondered if we could pull item 4.
Okay. Okay, well, so I'm going to go to the members of the public and see if there's any comment about pulling that item and or anything else that on the consent.
Would it be pulling it from the agenda in?
For discussion.
Putting it.
Oh, just put it,
into the-
Moving it to.
okay, that's,
discussion.
okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, we would be putting it first on the agenda. So I'm going to go to the members of the public. Any comments, questions, or concerns about the consent agenda?
Bryce Candy, 462 Ocean. I'm in favor of pulling it from consent agenda.
Okay. All right. That, anything else from the public on the consent agenda? Okay. I don't see anything, so I'll bring it back to the council. We do, I believe, need to vote on this because it's a change to the agenda. Is there a motion to pull that?
I recommend we pull item number 4 from consent and put it in number 3, after the unmet transit need and community emergency response, just to respect our speakers.
Our guest speakers. I agree with
I'll
that.
second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, so with that, we will move then, we will pull from the consent agenda, item number 4, and we will put it after the unmet transit needs and the community emergency response update. So with that then, we will go ahead and start with our regular item number 1 on the agenda.
We should probably vote on the consent.
Okay, we just did.
We just pulled something. We didn't
Oh,
pass the rest of it.
okay,
Sorry.
okay, no, that's okay.
I told you I'd be one last time.
Okay, so let's make another motion, please.
Accept the consent agenda.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thanks for keeping me on the straight and narrow there. Let's start with our agenda item number 1, annual unmet transit needs hearing. I'll turn it over to staff and to HCOG. We have someone. Ms. Nielsen?
Yes. Hello, my name is Michelle Nielsen. I am the contract planner for HCOG, and thank you for having this agenda item this evening and for enabling me to participate remotely. So I got a presentation. It's brief. I did share it with the city clerk earlier today. So that could, if there's interest in the community, the council to take a look at it, that's available. And also following my presentation, tonight's ask is for the city council to open the public hearing to allow residents to comment on transit needs in Humboldt and Trinidad, then followed by closing the public hearing and directing staff to provide a summary of that input to the HCOG. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and hopefully we don't have too many glitches here. Let's see here. And go with this. Come on. Okay. Oh, let me get my, okay, this will work. Okay, so I just kind of gave my introduction. Oopsie, get my pointer in the right place. So, oh, my slide did not advance. Let's try this again. Okay, here we go. So an overview of the unmet transit needs process is that kind of a quick summary is provided on the slide. It is part of the Transportation Development Act, which provides funding for transit, and this is a state law. It's a public, an unmet transit need is a public transportation need that is not being met by the current public transportation system. This process identifies and evaluates the adequacy of existing transportation services. And locally, the process involves public hearings, the release of an online survey, and receiving comments by email and phone call at the HCOG office. We're accepting comments through the end of the year, so through to December 31st. And the online survey, which is in English and Spanish, will be open and available for folks to complete till the end of the year as well. So unmet transit needs at a minimum hits one of these boxes. So requested trips from residents who don't have access to transit or specialized transportation or private transportation services, or it could be requested trips from residents who do not have the resources, the means to travel for medical appointments, shopping, social activities, employment, and that sort of thing. It can be public transportation or specialized transportation that are identified in a regional transportation plan, and that there's sufficient broad-based support. This means that the persons who are most likely to use the service on a regular basis have demonstrated support for that transit service. So. So first, is there an unmet transit need? And those are identified. And then is that need that's been identified, is it reasonable to meet? And there's this definition, along with the previous one, there's requirements in the Transportation Development Act, but there is some flexibility so that the local organization, HCOG in this case, can make some adjustments to it so it better reflects local needs. So the unmet transit needs definition in this reasonable to meet criteria have been adopted by HCOG, and that was last reviewed and adopted in December of 2023. So reasonable to meet criteria must be operationally and financially feasible, that the transit can get to and from that location, the roadways are adequate, there's sufficient funding available from identified sources to pay for the marginal operating cost for 3 years. The service must be projected to meet a minimum marginal fare box return ratio of 10% within 10 years. And reasonable to meet criteria, you can't compare unmet transit needs with the needs for streets and roads. That's actually out of state law. And should a service be initiated, one that was found to be unmet and also to meet the reasonable to meet criteria, if it's implemented, there is, as part of this process, it's regularly evaluated in the first 1 or 2 years of service to ensure it meets certain thresholds that are actually in the HCOG part of their definition, and that document's available on the website. So just this slide kind of gives an overview of where we're at. So we're in the public comment period, which runs through to the end of the year. That's followed by compiling all that input and reviewing it with the transit providers, and then preparation of draft report that will go to the Social Services Transportation Advisory Committee for recommendations on that report and the findings. And again, an opportunity for input from the operators and the public. And then ultimately in about May of the next year would be the adoption of that report by the board of HCOG. And so there are some known transit needs. These are come up pretty frequently in the process. And some of these are going to be met or better met in the future. I'll go a little bit more over that in a minute. So more frequent service, earlier and later service during the weekdays, Sunday service on RTS, that's the main regional line, and then later night service on Friday and Saturday between Arcata and Eureka. So these are things that we frequently hear. So just briefly, kind of a snapshot of ridership changes on the various HTA routes over time. This slide shows that RTS and ETS, they are recovering from where after the pandemic, which would be this orange kind of rust-colored block. So they're continuing, ridership is continuing to improve. The Southern Humboldt is similarly situated. Willow Creek has seen a big increase, and is actually their ridership is over what it was before the pandemic started. And the last batch here shows dial ride. They had been recovering, but this last fiscal year they actually saw a decline. And I'm not sure what the circumstances of that. For the Willow Creek increase, that relates to providing transit to students to and from Willow Creek who reside in Willow Creek, and they go to school and commonly in Arcata. So that's why their ridership is at the levels it is. And then so over this last fiscal year, the ridership is at over 480,000 passenger trips. And then this just kind of provides similar data just over a longer span of time, beginning in 2010, ending in 2024. So seeing the increase. This last year, the rate of increase was lower than between 2022 and 2023, but it is continuing to increase. And then the Arcata system, this is showing that their trend has been to continue to increase, 29% increase, while the red line at the bottom shows HSU enrollment. So that system is continuing to see increased ridership, although Cal Poly enrollment is actually still a little bit lower than what it was at the beginning, just before the pandemic. And then going over this kind of going to just give a quick summary of Humboldt Transit Authority's accomplishments and what they're doing, things that are coming up, adding hydrogen fueling station, hydrogen buses, the development of intermodal transit center in Eureka. And these efforts, along with others, have been boosted by a grant they were awarded. I think it was the end of last month for $18.7 million that will expand the fleet of lower emission vehicles, improve information to transit riders, basically make information, arrival and departure information real time, which would be a big help, and increase frequency of service. And also some capital improvements, improving the bus stop designs and improved lighting and security enhancements. Some other things, actually, these were mentioned earlier. Some of these unified branding and fares has been implemented. You probably see the Ride Humboldt logo on the buses now that come through Trinidad. Tap to pay. The Flex Rider, which is a micro transit pilot project. This is an on-demand shared ride transit service that operates from bus stop to bus stop. It's had a soft launch in the greater Humboldt Bay area. What it uses open spots on dial-a-ride buses is what it does. So in 2025, this Flex Rider program will launch in McKinleyville with transit between McKinleyville and Arcata through a grant that was awarded for that project. And then the North State Express, the Route 101, this launched in early 2024, the $2 from Eureka to Ukiah. And this had ridership, it was over 600 riders between January and June. So, there's others, so you can basically connect now using transit from north of Trinidad into Del Norte, all the way down into the Bay Area. So, and over into Redding, as was mentioned. So, if members, attendees this evening, or maybe friends they may know, if they have questions or would like to provide more input on transit needs in the community, this slide has obviously the email address and the phone number for HCOG, and can provide that information. And also, we have an online survey in both English and Spanish that will be open until the end of the year. And another real important point is, and I heard it mentioned, that HTA has been really successful in getting grants. And part of that, what's really key, is that public input. So even if maybe an input comments we get, they may not be meet all the criteria and tests for an unmet transit need, but that information is still compiled and used as documentation to support all these grant applications. So basically all input is valuable, and we're be interested in hearing what the community and the council has to say. And that concludes my presentation. I can stop sharing my screen and hand it back. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Well, we'll see if we have any questions or comments here, excuse me, in the room, and then folks can go to the website to add more input. Council, are there any things you'd like to?
Yeah, that's a great presentation. One opportunity that I've been requested by other people is like a Trinidad trolley loop. You know, you start at the park and ride, so all the tourists park at a park and ride. They go to Sumeg, they go to the harbor, they perhaps maybe go to the Rancheria, but they do a loop, and we just keep people, tourists parked at the park and ride, and not filling up our streets in the summertime.
Yeah, it's a great
We
idea.
could charge money on that, and I think it'd be a good return on investment, so. My 2 cents.
Yeah, I would second that. I think that's a great suggestion. I don't know if it's something Humboldt Transit Authority could tackle, but it seems like as a pilot,
Yeah,
it might be a good.
there is a Trinidad trolley in Colorado, and it's doing quite well over there. So, yeah.
Did they call you or something? Because I get calls from Doug. Okay, so any other comments from the council? So great suggestion. Any suggestions or comments from the community regarding transit? I'm just curious, if you guys don't mind, I wouldn't mind doing just a quick little survey in the room by show of hands, how many of us in the room are taking public transit on a regular basis? Well, or at all. Yeah, okay, so we have probably three people. Maybe 4 out of 25 of us or so. So it's a small percentage, but it is a percentage nonetheless. And so we want to, I think I was a big fan of the micro transit, and we discussed that last time. So I'm looking forward to hearing how that goes in McKinleyville. Okay, I think that's it. And thank you, Ms. Oh, sorry, we do have one more comment, please.
I think I had a comment on the unmet transit needs. It would be really helpful. I know it was mentioned on the slide, but to get a Sunday service, since that used to be a service that was run by Humboldt Transit Authority that got cut some years ago. That'd be really helpful for like social functions, but then also like making it to church, you know, out of this tiny city right here and going down to Arcadia. I'm a college student, so I'm really grateful to be able to make those, you know, connections down to the college. But something I want to mention is it's like roughly 3 times as long as driving to take the bus down to the college, and that's because it's quite a meandering loop. So that's kind of like a met transit is like a, you know, like a timely way to get down to college classes. Like I have an 8 a.m. calculus class, but I could get up at 6, catch the bus. Oh, wow. So just kind of really janky, and that would be my number one. So maybe faster service and Sunday service, please. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
And we have more comments.
Thank you very much for all your hard work. We've lived here for 22 years. He was born here. Worked for Arcadia House Partnership for 24 years now. I love all the hard work that and the planning that we're going to do for future route. I try to take it as much as I can, but I could either do a 7-hour shift or I could do a 10-hour shift. So if we could have a little bit more frequent buses, and it is, like I said, about an hour trip to go down and almost an hour back and everything. So really makes the day really long. But we thank you so much for all that you're doing.
Thank you.
Monet, and I am on the SSTAC, so I do input that way too. What I'd like to say is we never consider Trinidad as a destination. So many people come here, and of course they bring their cars, and they thought if we had a better bus service from Eureka or wherever, people would just leave their cars in Eureka and come to Trinidad. And I just wanted also to give a small version, because I do the week without driving regularly. So to get someplace in McKinleyville at 8:30, I think, at 6:30, walk in the dark on scenic drive with a flashlight, nonetheless almost run over by speeding truck or SUV, hard to tell in the dark and at high speed. 4 people waiting for the 6:45 bus in Trinidad. And then, you know, I went to what I went to. To get home, I had a couple of errands, but the next bus home couldn't come until 11:30. So I went to the senior center and met some people there, but it doesn't value the individual's time. It's considered that you take the bus if you're absolutely desperate. And we all get old. We all have difficulty driving at night eventually. Or you could have your knee replaced or something. If you have a car, you don't have somebody who can drive you, you're in deep, deep trouble. So that's my comment.
Thank you.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Great comments. And again, having served on the board with Humboldt Transit Authority, the general manager and the staff there are very receptive. Of course, it's a numbers game. I'm not going to pretend that we can, do anything at any time. However, the input is valuable and it's going to be listened to. And I encourage moving forward the economic development conversation and this conversation. I think really there's an opportunity to dovetail the two, because you're right? Let's celebrate Trinidad and encourage people to come here and make it for $2, right? I can't drive to my job for $2 with my truck. That's another story, but it's really is an opportunity to say, let's celebrate the what we have here and to bring those two together. Humboldt Transit Authority is very creative, very intelligent, and I think that there's some opportunities. So I just want to put that out there.
Excellent. Well, thanks for all the input, everyone. And thank you, Ms. Nielsen, for your presentation. We will continue to solicit feedback and pass it your way.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, our next item tonight is Community Emergency Response Team update and presentation. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to the team leader, Larry Goldberg.
Good evening, everybody. How are you? So as a little recap, I'd like to mention just over a year ago, the council discussed and decided to form a community emergency response team. We call it CERT. And last November, exactly 1 year ago, we did our first training. And now I can give you a report for our first year of operation. So we now have a fully vested team. Next, please. We did a training here last November, and everybody on our team was a 3-day training. Everybody on the team received basic training in emergency response, and this includes first aid, firefighting, search and rescue, and our CERT protocols, communications, and so forth. So it's a basic training to keep everybody safe in time of an emergency. So out of this training, we now have 20 trained CERT members. Not everybody is actively participating, but we've been meeting monthly since January. So this is now our first year of operation, and you're looking at the team. Not everybody lives here in Trinidad, but some people live in West Haven. Some people actually come from McKinleyville, but we have this team and we want to grow it some more. So it's a starting point. Next. So that's our swearing in. Mayor Kelly swore in the members in January, and we now have approximately 12 to 15 active members. We do have more trained people in the field, but at least 12 to 15 show up every month. And we've been having monthly meetings as well as doing some public meetings. Next. So our first deployment, we decided to actually do an effort to see what a deployment was like. And in February, we had that big windstorm. We had 8 people show up for deployment. We split into 3 teams, and we canvassed West Haven, Patrick's Point Drive, and we even sent a team up to Big Lagoon and then down to Scenic Drive. So we did a survey of damage and gave a damage report to the OES and to Mayor. So, we didn't have any serious damage, but some trees fell and there were power outages and so forth. But it was a good experience to get the team to deploy in relatively short order. People showed up with an hour's notice, and it worked out very well. Next. But it's supposed to do it in the sequence. It didn't do the sequence. But anyhow, we did a refresher class in February. This was in Blue Lake, and we had a training for various first aid and emergency response techniques. So we did a little refresher. and that turned out very well. Next. Yeah, these are supposed to be in sequence, but they're not changing like they're supposed to. In any case, in April, the OES put on what's called a full-scale disaster event. You can't see all the individual pictures. They were supposed to load one at a time, but the point is, they did a simulation at the Blue Lake Rancheria of an active shooter. They had moulage, which is to dress people up like they were actually injured. And we had injured people, we had active shooter, sheriff's department, highway patrol, Blue Lake police, Blue Lake Rancheria police, ambulances, and other first aid responders were all on site to actually do a test run of communications and other activities. And there, as you can see, there was a number of injured people, and we all were in a full-scale, realistic simulation. We are looking at doing something like this here in Trinidad. We would like to do a simulation at some point of some kind of emergency and see what kind of deployment we get and what kind of response we have. So we are training for this type of event. Next. So we also did community training. We've put on a number of community workshops. I'm sorry the slides aren't building the way they're supposed to, but we did a CPR and Stop the Bleed class back in, I think this was October, so a little over a month ago. We just completed an animal first aid class this month. This was about a week or so ago, where we trained people in how to administer first aid to animals. And we showed people how to have go bags and animal preparation for disaster. And this was very popular and it was well attended, so that went well. Go ahead. And we have an emergency trailer. The pictures don't fully demonstrate it, but we received the trailer from the McKinleyville CERT team. This was purchased under a grant from the LISTOS, and this trailer is worth about $20,000. It's fully equipped. Well, it's equipped with basic supplies. With the budget you've allocated, we are going to outfit it with additional equipment. We're going to buy a new generator. We're going to add a couple of other devices, and we want a much more robust first aid capability. Our attitude is we will be on our own for some period of time in a major event. If we have the kind of megathrust earthquake and tsunami that we're anticipating, Trinidad's going to become an island. We're going to be on our own for at least a couple of days, more likely several weeks. So we want to have the trailer outfitted. It will be deployed here in Trinidad. We're setting up a base station with walkie-talkies and ham radio so we can communicate with the rest of the community if all other communications are down. And we are training with OES and with other CERT teams to be able to talk to each other from here. We are assuming that we're going to lose cell service, we're going to lose most communications, telephone, so forth, and we have 4 ham radio operators on our team, and we're training more, so we'll be prepared to do communications within the area. We have to buy radios and a base station for the trailer, but this is going to become a command post. So we are getting set up for the kind of emergencies that we anticipate here. Next. We're also doing ongoing training with other CERT teams and partner agencies. For example, the NOAA had a training in reporting the weather and what kinds of weather events could happen here, which might include the major storms that we have, plus potential tornadoes. We could have a tornado at some point in the future or a major wind event. We've had them several times in the past. And so we are now trained in how to report this to NOAA so they can gather information. We've also attended some trainings in setting up Red Cross shelter and in doing other kinds of activities that we might have here. So we want all of our members to be as well trained as possible. So we've changed our meeting schedule. We've been meeting monthly with a regular meeting. We are going to start meeting every other month. And in the odd months, we're going to do training. And we want our people trained in a little bit more deeply trained in communications, more advanced first aid, more advanced search and rescue, and some more advanced firefighting and other activities, including possibly wildland first aid. So if we were involved with search and rescue in some of the woods around here, there might be some activities that we would help with. We're in touch with the local fire departments, volunteer fire departments, and we want to be able to assist them. We're trying to talk right now with CAL FIRE, but also with West Haven and Trinidad volunteer fire departments to see how we can assist them as well in some of their activities. So we're looking at mutual response, and there's ways that we can help. Everyone on our team is volunteer. Everyone has given a lot of time and effort to the training. And we have now formed a number of working groups. These working groups each specialize in a certain area. So we have a trailer working group working on outfitting the trailer. Mayor Kelly is running our fundraising working group, and she wanted me to tell you that there's a project they're working on, which is that team will be collecting new and gently used shoes from December 1st to February 1st as a fundraising effort to complement the funding the city has offered. Funds will be helped the team cover costs for personal gear and for team equipment for the trailer. CERT is partnering with Funds to Orgs, which collect the shoes and distribute them to micro entrepreneurs in developing countries for resale. So it's a win-win-win. Shoes stay out of the landfill, CERT gets a check for the gear, and small enterprises are enabled in developing countries. The call to action for now is just to hang out to your shoes. So we want to have people donate gently used shoes for this effort, and it will be used to raise some money. So, and there's going to be a donation station probably here at Town Hall, and there will be some collection days, and Mayor Kelly will probably say more about that. So I want to point out that we appreciate your allocating a budget for us. We're going to fill out the trailer. We also want to develop for each of our team members sufficient equipment to be able to respond and be ready for almost any kind of emergency that we may have here. So we do want trauma kits. We're going to also have more advanced life-saving activity stuff, because we think in time we may be requested to reply or to respond to a certain disaster. So we want to be ready for that. I think that's the end of it. Is there anything more? Yeah, that's us. So we're on to our second year. We will be meeting here. We meet on the fourth Monday of every other month, starting in January. In the months of February, April, and so forth, we'll be doing training. And we're also going to put on additional public workshops where we want to do some more in-depth training for the public. We want everyone in this community to have a go bag. We want everyone in this community to have basic first aid. And we are concerned about how many rentals there are here. And we want to see in every rental in this area, whether it be VRBO, Airbnb, motel, what have you, that there be instructions on what to do in case of an emergency, because evacuation from this community is going to be difficult. We've been trained in traffic and crowd control, but there will be some issues we foresee in the future, especially in the case of wildfire. If there was a wildfire here, we think that there could be some bottlenecks, and we want everyone to be aware of what to do and where to go. We will be talking with McKinleyville and other teams about having evacuation centers. And we will like to have a plan that dovetails with the city's emergency plan on where people should go in time of an emergency. And everyone should get trained. It's not a matter of if, it's only a matter of when. And we want to be ready for whatever may come. Any questions at this time?
Questions from the council?
Yes, you mentioned Mondays. What time?
Oh, it's in the evening. It's 6:30 till 8 o'clock. And that's every other month. And those are, we consider our general meetings. At the general meetings, the working groups report back. We give updates on other training and other things going on. And we have a chance to socialize a little bit. And we want to work as a team. We're trying to get everyone to really mesh as a team. We want to get everyone to work together, and they have to get to know each other and work together. So these longer trainings on the opposite months will be out in the field or here, and they're going to be 3 to 4 hours long. And this is where we do the specialized training like animal first aid or a CPR or stop the bleed, things like that. And then those trainings are on Sundays. They're on the second Sunday of every other month from noon till 4 p.m. here. And then sometimes we go out in the field.
And these would be for people, for example, who haven't had any training at all.
Right. We're only going to be inviting the general public to a couple of these trainings. Several are going to be for CERT team members countywide. So there are 10 CERT teams around the county. Every city in the county has a CERT team now. And Southern Humboldt unincorporated areas as well are covered by OES. But we will be doing training specifically for CERT trained members. And then the general public will be invited to those trainings that are suitable for the general public. And I expect there'll be 2 or 3 of those a year.
Other questions from the council for Larry? I'm going to ask if there are any questions from the public, the community, regarding the community emergency response team.
I will mention that we do want to hit up the Civic Club and the Chamber of Commerce as well to get their buy-in. And I'd like them to be a little bit more actively involved if possible.
Yeah, that would be great. Sorry, did you guys see someone with a hand raised? Oh, please. I couldn't see you because of the podium. I couldn't see you because of the podium. I apologize. Come on up if you have a question or comment, Victoria.
I think the general public should know. It might be good to teach the Heimlich maneuvers.
Oh, we teach that in the CPR class. The general public needs to be prepared for camping out at home if need be, but also to have a go bag. We have a procedure that we talk about, and this is something everyone here should know. You may only have 10 minutes, and you really need to think, what would you need if you only had 10 minutes to pack? And I think a good example is look at what happened in North Carolina and Florida this last month with the hurricanes. Some of these people, they never prepared for a hurricane in North Carolina. And for that matter, we may not be ready for whatever may hit here. If you have a limited amount of time, you need to have a go bag to be ready to run. And the children have to have a go bag, and your pets need to have a go bag. And they're not expensive to put together. They take a little bit of time, but it's one of those things that you'll rest more comfortably knowing you have those basic things covered. But basic training in first aid and so forth is something that we offer in CERT, and we'll be doing more of that in the future. We do have CERT trainings coming up next year, and we'll publicize them when they're available, but they only take place a couple times a year, so you need to sign up well ahead of time.
Okay. Question? Okay. I want to say thank you to Larry, who's been, as you can see by the amount of training and community outreach, and we're just really fortunate to have Larry leading the team. And I really thank you for this.
Well, Aaron helps as well. Aaron is a co-team leader.
Yeah.
And we appreciate his effort as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Larry. Thanks for the presentation. All right, our next item, Ben, was from the consent agenda. We agreed that this would be item number 3. This is the Ocean Protection Council funding opportunity to implement coastal resilience plan priority projects on Edwards and Axel Lingwin Memorial Trail. I want to turn it over to staff, but I also wanted to say about this item that one of the reasons this was in consent is because it's kind of a plan for a plan. So staff may have kind of limited answers to questions because what we were actually doing is saying, we want to get a report next month on what some of the priority projects could be if we were to apply for a grant. So with that preface, I don't know if Angela or Eli, or do we want to just take questions if you want to do a little?
Yeah, Angela, did you want to just briefly?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe just an overview, and then we'll see if there are any questions.
Everyone hear me?
Yes.
So the city, we came upon a grant opportunity through the Ocean Protection Council. And it would help us implement the coastal resilience plan priority projects that we actually identified. I mean, not all of them, but a few, that we identified in our most recently wrapped up grant, which resulted in the coastal resilience action plan. Right now, again, we're still trying to explore our options as to the best track to take. With this grant, we have two options. Track one, it's specifically for like a planning project. And then the first time they're accepting proposals for that is December 20th. And it's a non-competitive quarterly rolling base that you can submit these applications. So we're hoping to have something for the council to review if we're given guidance to pursue this by the December meeting. And if there's more questions or we need further time, we still have more opportunities to go for a grant. There is a track two, which is actually for implementation, so a construction project. We don't know if we're at that stage yet, but we're exploring that. And they're actually not accepting grant proposals just yet for that. Instead, it's just a letter of interest at this time, and that is supposed to do on December 20th. If we submit the letter of interest, it will then trigger the Ocean Protection Council to review that letter of interest and see if they think we do have a priority project. And if we do, then they will allow us to then apply for a grant proposal with that. And again, that's if we meet the criteria. And again, we don't even know if we're ready for a project like that just yet. But we want to ensure that we explore that option first before passing up this opportunity. The grants range from 200,000 to 10 million. So if we could get a considerable grant to finish one of our projects, that would be a great opportunity for the city. And again, this is also just to help us address like the bluff instability on Edward Street. So again, it's just planning for the future.
All right, any questions from the council on this project? Or this proposal for a project? Any questions from the public? Mr. Kenny?
A question about the bluff instability on Edward Street. You're talking about the area around the old Memorial Lighthouse Park, or where exactly are?
I think that would be something that we would address while we're doing the studies. So I want to say the entire left side, but I have to talk to our engineers.
But certainly that's the main instigator is that area, because we're concerned if it works its way towards Edwards, we want to be prepared.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Ms. Hostler Carmison, I see your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I'm having sound issues. I heard the HCOG presentation really well. I'm hearing the city council okay, but I'm not hearing from the podium well. And I could not hear the projects that you were considering possibly. If you could repeat those briefly, I would really appreciate it. And just louder, and I don't know if the sound can be turned up in the room or not.
We're gonna try. Thank you. And Angela's gonna do a quick recap. It's louder in the room. Is it louder on?
Can you hear me?
That's a little better.
Okay. So the projects are Edward Street. So Edward Street, specifically looking at the bluff and Memorial Trail. And Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail, it's one of the projects that we believe could be potentially ready for construction. But again, we're exploring that still. So that is something that is going to be discussed.
Edward Street and Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail construction. I didn't hear anything else.
Those are the projects.
Those two. And what would the project be on Edward Street?
It would just be looking at bluff instability and doing further studies that were identified in the coastal.
Okay, and that's on Rancheria land?
No, this is by where the old lighthouse was. So basically where Trinity meets Edwards,
Okay,
generally that area.
okay. So all part of the entrance to Axel Lindgren Memorial, not the bluff erosion at the harbor.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
All right. Apologies for the audio. Other questions, comments from the public? All right, then I will thank you very much, Angela, and I'll bring it back to the council. Since we pulled this from consent, I do think at this point, then we would need to vote on what's in the packet, which is to go ahead and instruct staff to develop proposals. So if anyone wants to make that motion. Sorry?
I'm sorry, I actually have one other thing to add.
Yes.
So council did direct staff to apply for a grant through the Office of Planning and Research back in, I believe, May. And unfortunately, it was for Edward Street and looking at the bluff. However, unfortunately, the state no longer had that funding available. So I just want to make note that this is also going to kind of fulfill that other part that we were trying to apply for last time.
Hey.
I apologize, Mayor Kelly. I have one more very brief question.
Okay, and then I have another comment from the public. Go ahead.
The entrance to the old Memorial Lighthouse is both owned by, part of it is owned by the Civic Club and part of it by the city. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
So it would be a joint project with the Civic Club and the city and TAS.
I think it depends on what the project is. And right, Eli, I mean, right now we're formulating sort of what are some of the potential projects, and there's some slumping there. I think the Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail, if I understand correctly, was one of the primary projects we were looking at putting forward.
Right, and in addition to that, as far as the bluff erosion, we're talking mostly about what would be west, for the most part, west of the Civic Club site. So it's eroded considerably, and that's the area. And then it's up to the engineers, but that's the focus of the area.
I mean, I see this as being kind of a plan for a plan. Like, this is the part of the phase where we're saying, let's instruct staff to go and make some recommendations on some potential projects that then we can all review. And that's why we're having a little trouble answering some of the questions, because it's so preliminary. It's, you know.
Right. And I just want to, we're supportive of whatever the project is, because we agree with the slope destabilizing. However, I just wanted to make everyone aware there was a little bit of communication needed between the landowners there.
Yes, absolutely agreed. And one of the things that would happen if the council moves to continue this work is that in the next meeting in December, we'll get input, and we'll talk about what the projects are, and we'll talk about sort of what are the phases of implementation and how much community input can be given, including obviously tribal input.
Right. And one last point, there is an old appeal at the Coastal Commission on the entrance to the Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail that would also come into play with any coastal development permits.
Okay. Okay, good to know. And staff is looking at me and we're looking back, so we will look into that. I apologize that we don't have a lot of detail on this. That's, we're still it's still in the formation stages. So, Bryce, I think you had your hand up. Do you want to come to the podium so that folks on Zoom can hear you, if you don't mind?
Yes, thank you. So I don't have any problem with exploring civilization issues for Edwards Avenue. The street is obviously one of the main thoroughfares in town, and we would want it to could be used. But the other project, the Axel Lindbergh Trail repairs, is more, there's been a lot of engineering work done on that already. My understanding is the applicant really wants to move forward with implementing that plan. That was discussed here in October, but there was certainly no consensus about whether this was a good project for the city. And, from my point of view, the trail can be put back in service with a very small amount of pick and shovel work for the short term. And then when that property gets back into tribal hands, that whatever tribe that is could decide what the long-term needs are and handle the paperwork and the whole process for making that happen. The Yurok tribe designed and built that trail in 1997. I haven't heard them weigh in on this issue at all. It's been the TAS exclusively, from what I can tell. And, I think that a full-on wooden or metal staircase, like they're talking about, is not consistent with the traditional nature of the original trail, which was just a dirt path, completely unimproved by any kind of technology or equipment or, cable steps or anything. So there seems to be kind of a disconnect between the idea that, well, it's super important that we have the exact historical alignment going on here, but it's okay if we use all these other non-traditional materials, essentially kind of making a grand staircase type of project, which would be great for the engineers, but I don't think we should be in the business of just picking the project that gets the best, greatest amount of work for any engineering firm. We kind of ran into that problem with the Van Wyck Trail when the big grandiose plans were put forth. A lot of money and time and effort went into it. And then when people realized what it was really all about, we pulled the plug on the whole thing and just walked away from it. So I think the potential for that kind of thing exists with the trail also. And then the amount of time that staff would be putting into a project like this just seems much more appropriate for the tribal entity to take care of that with their resources and
Thank you.
And the funding they can get. So I think that we should, with new council members coming on board, if we want a smooth transition, the views of the new people should be considered also.
Yes.
And the trail aspect should be tabled until we get the new council installed. And I suppose we're getting a new city manager at some point.
Yes, we talked about that earlier, January.
Okay.
Yeah, January. Yes. But we're not introducing that person just yet because we want to get all everything in order.
Right. So I think the trail rebuild project should be tabled temporarily, pending seating of the new council and the city manager.
All right. Thank you for your.
Since it is a rolling funding type of project, it wouldn't eliminate that possibility.
Yeah.
But I think we need to take a step back and slow things down a little for that aspect of it.
Thank you, Bryce. Thank you for your comments. Other public comments on this grant application before I bring it back to the council? I don't see any. Did you have something, Chuck? I would just say, I guess, I don't see applying for this grant as an approval of any project at this stage. So I don't know if I'm confused. Maybe Eli, maybe you can help, but my understanding is what we're saying as a council is we would like to have staff go and work on some potential project plans. So for example, for Axel Lindgren, it's not necessarily that we're saying today, we want to implement a certain trail model. We could, for example, be asking for funding just to do a short-term fix of Axel Lindgren, right? Or we could be doing the long-term, but we don't know yet because we don't have that. We don't have that project plan proposal yet. So this is my understanding is we're saying tonight, we're going to move ahead to get the proposals and then submit those for funding. Am I missing something?
You know, Angela can help, and I mean, basically what she was saying is that we would, at this stage, be submitting these two concepts, and then they would tell us if something is feasible for funding.
Okay.
And if they say that, yes, you know, this project sounds good, why don't you go ahead and submit that, then we would. So this is like the first stage.
Okay, so that's
right.
Helpful. So the concept that we.
Is that correct? Pardon? Okay.
This was going to be a fun topic.
For the track 2, yes, which would be the implementation project.
Mm-hmm. And that wouldn't be until the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and so they're not even accepting grant proposals. It's just the letter of interest.
Yeah.
So, and again, we don't even know if we're ready for implementation of that project.
Right. Ms. Hostler-Carmison has a comment as well.
Thank you, Mayor Kelly. I'm a little confused now because it's my understanding that there is a plan to that has been designed through GHD and Tri Ancestral Society received a grant, and that funding was used to design the trail that Bryce alluded to. And so if there is a design and that has been approved by TAS in the city, what would the grant actually be doing? Would it be doing the feasibility and the environmental, or with, you know, I don't know what % complete those design drawings are, but if it's feasibility and environmental to move forward with the trail project with this conceptual design, that would make sense.
So I can answer that. So there's still a lot more that needs to be done for that project. So that's actually what we're trying to determine with this, is if we're even at that stage where we are eligible for that track 2, the Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail project.
I'm sorry, your voice drifts off and I can't hear you.
So I was just saying that we're trying to determine if we're even at that point where they would fund where we're at with that project, because there's still a lot more planning phases of that need to be done. There's a lot more studies according to their technical memo.
Do you know what % complete the plans are?
No.
Okay.
You know, it actually is considered a conceptual plan. So the plans that are included in the packet are as far as they've gotten so far. So then they would take that concept and they would design it. So right now it's just from the concepts, in the concept stage.
Thank you, Eli. Thank you very much.
So Angela, if we applied for this in December, when would the funding, do you know when the grants would be allocated? Did they give a timeline? That's
I have to look, just because there's quite a.
It's probably next year sometime.
It's sometime next year, and then for the track 2, which is the implementation project. That is So for track one for the planning projects, it's non-competitive, rolling basis. Track two, there's less funding for that, so it will be competitive. So we do need to consider that.
Okay. All right, I'm going to bring it back to the council because I think we need to make a decision on this and move on. So how are we thinking about this, right?
Ready to move forward, make a motion
Okay.
to approve and direct staff based off of the Ocean Protection Council funding opportunity to implement coastal resilience plan priority projects on Edwards and Axel Lincoln Memorial Trail.
Right?
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so I think we all agree that we would like to move ahead and see what kind of funding we can get, see with projects on bluff stability, Edwards and the Axel Memorial Trail.
So may I make a
Yes.
comment? So
Yes.
in doing that, that doesn't negate what Bryce was saying about wanting the new city councilors to come aboard. Because this is a plan for a plan,
Well,
not
I mean,
implementation.
I think we are saying we are willing to go forward with the conceptual Axel Ingram Memorial Trail design that's been put forward by the Tri management team, and the city council has reviewed it. And so I think we're saying, yes, let's float that and see if we can get funding for that. But in the absence of engineering and so forth, I don't know that we know what it's actually going to look like in the end. We don't have, as Angela said, it's just partially completed.
And there's always multiple steps involved
Yeah.
between, this step and being shovel ready. There's lots of places for public input, for city input. So this is,
Yeah, I don't.
this is a
think it's
plan
gonna get
to
done.
think about the possibility of a plan.
Yeah,
And
I
so,
don't think it's going to get done.
yeah, there's a
January.
lot between here and the shovel.
But that helps. All right. I'm going to move us along then to the discussion presentation regarding law enforcement. This is a JPA contract concept. And I'm going to turn this over to Eli. And we're going to talk about law enforcement.
Yeah, thank you. I was looking over to see if EREC was on there, but I don't see him on there. So EREC is from our insurance company, which is a joint powers authority. So as I said in my staff report, I think I'll read that because it gives you a good general idea. So the current law enforcement contract that we have with the sheriff's office is also supplemented by Pacific Coast Security. The deputy sheriffs patrol the city and respond to calls. And Pacific Coast Security is in the city in the evenings, observing traffic and communicating with the community, including the businesses. The arrangement with the sheriff's office and PCS seems to provide adequate coverage for the city. So this has been in place for a little while. Originally, when I started 5.5 years ago, we did have a dedicated officer in the city, and that went on for at least 2 or 3 years. So sometime during COVID, I'm guessing right around 2022, the sheriff was unable to provide that dedicated officer that would be here for 40 hours. We also, at one point, were sharing another officer with Blue Lake. Initially, they had to, because they're a larger city of about 1,200 people. So they're 4 times our population. They originally had 2 officers and felt like they only needed 1 or at least 1 to share the other one. So for some time, we had between 40 hours to 60 hours of officers that were present in the city rather than just patrolling through the city. Roughly 3 times a day is what we are normally told by the sheriff's office. And then PCS, like I said, appears in the evenings. So Sarah, the liability insurance pool, 6 of the 7 cities in Humboldt County, all except Rio Del, are part of CIRA. And altogether, there's about 50 cities. And they pool their resources. And whenever something happens, like a shooting in a city or whatever, all the cities technically end up paying for it, you know. So as a result, when you try to have the indemnity language in the sheriff's contract, Sierra got concerned because they were shifting the risk from the county to the city. So basically, Sierra, our insurance JPA, is covering any indemnity that would occur if the sheriff, the deputy sheriffs, if something happens where they're being sued for their actions. So previously it was the county, and now it's shifted to the city. And then what's attached to my report was the 3 pages that were prepared by E-Wright from Sierra, where he was basically explaining how that has come about and the impact of it. So note that the sheriff's contract with Trinidad is for 5 years, and the sheriff has not indicated that there would be a significant increase in costs to the city. In the report that E-Wright prepared, he originally prepared it for Blue Lake. At the end of October, they made the same presentation just to sort of get some feedback from the councils and also from the communities. So Blue Lake has a 1-year contract with the sheriff, and that's why in that report, E-Wright said it was a 1-year contract. And also, they indicated to Blue Lake that there could be a significant increase in costs to that. They're already paying considerably more than we are, about triple what we're paying. Again, they're 4 times our size. So over time, residents in our city during this 5.5 years that I've been here, and even before, have expressed an interest recently, I'd say in the last few years, when we shifted over to patrols, that they liked having a dedicated officer assigned to the city, as the sheriff's office at one time was able to provide. But now, because they have to cover 4,000 square miles is the size of our county, and we're 1 square mile. So as a result, it's difficult for them to give us a dedicated officer. So in the past 2 months, staff has had a couple of meetings with the Ferndale Police Department, the City of Blue Lake, and Sierra, our insurer, to discuss potential options for consideration as to what other cities have done when they try to contract for services, either with a joint city or to form a JPA. So we want to discuss the potential option with the city council and the community to ascertain if there is sufficient interest to further pursue this option. The concept is that the 3 smallest cities in the county, meaning Ferndale, Blue Lake, and Trinidad, would possibly form a joint powers authority, which would be like a metropolitan police, or we could contract directly, meaning Blue Lake and Trinidad, with Ferndale. Ferndale has a police department. They've had it since the late 1800s, and they have 5 police officers, and they have a chief, and they also have about 5 reserve officers that are available for them. They basically are saying that they could supply officers to serve Blue Lake and Trinidad. They're also adding at least 1 more officer that could serve in this capacity. Those 3 officers would be located in the Blue Lake, Trinidad, possibly Arcata region. So they would live close by. They wouldn't be living in Ferndale. And 1 would be a sergeant, and 2 would be patrol officers. 1 would be dedicated to Blue Lake, 1 would be dedicated to Trinidad. So also a police car and uniforms can be purchased with the Sierra Flexible Spending Funds. So we have enough money in the Sierra Flexible Spending Funds that are dedicated to Trinidad that can be utilized to purchase a car, a new police car, which would be about $55,000, and then also to purchase a couple of uniforms that would indicate Trinidad. and then the car could be patrolling in the city of Trinidad. So Cal Poly Humboldt Police Department would provide the dispatch for the three cities. Mutual aid, of course, can be provided by all the local agencies, including the Sheriff's Office for McKinleyville, CHP, Arcata, as well as Ferndale. So those can all provide mutual aid. The cost of providing these services through the cities would be much greater, is the wording I use, than the current services provided to the city. We're currently spending under 100,000 rather, currently. And with this concept, it could be in excess of 200,000. It would provide us more service, but it would be more of a cost. So ultimately, the council can direct staff, before we spend too much time in this path, number one, to further pursue this option with both Ferndale and Blue Lake and Sarah, or number two, to wait until probably Ferndale and Blue Lake move forward with that if we don't join them, and then see how it's working, and then reconsider if we want to do the same thing for our city. So those are two potential paths that we could pursue. But certainly having options is always better than not having options.
Yep.
And eventually, I'm calling this sort of like a quasi police department. We've been there, we've had a police department. We're only a city of 300 people. It's quite costly to have your own police department because then you have to pay for a chief. In this concept here, we're sharing a police chief with Ferndale and Blue Lake. So it cuts a lot of the overhead.
Right, interesting. Yeah, thank you. Interesting proposal. I'll start with the council. Any questions for Eli? Nope. All right, you must have been really clear. I understood what you're proposing. So let's go to the community for comments or questions about this proposed potential JPA. Right.
The first question is, when does the current agreement with the county run out?
It's a 5-year contract, so it would run out in 2029, I believe. And we can leave, and the county could leave on a 1 month's notice.
I want to see the JPA model that Sierra identified and look at. But we haven't seen, I don't think. No.
I think it was mentioned in his report, the 3 pages. There are a couple that they have looked at, and they actually did send a model contract that could be utilized, which would be the contract directly with Ferndale and with Blue Lake and Trinidad if we did that. So it could be one version. The JPA version would be later on. They would initially start with the contract and then develop into a JPA.
Yeah, what I was referring to was an agreement that would create a JPA.
Yeah.
What kind of agreement would be entering into with Blue Lake and Ferndale?
Okay.
To me, that's important.
Sure.
See what that looks like. And then can you tell us exactly how much the member cities would have to pay more under the new?
Yeah, the concept that when we had our meeting, and I had Dave join me, because when Gabe and I were talking, because I went to the initial meeting, and then when we were talking, he had really excellent questions he was asking. And I says, okay, why don't you come and join me, because I will be retiring in January, and then we'll be having a new city manager, and then Dave could help function sort of like in that transition stage. But basically, at that meeting, Ferndale determined that it would cost about $380,000 to provide that service to both Blue Lake and Trinidad. I made it clear, at least in my viewpoint at the meeting, that Trinidad is 300,000 people, it's 300 people rather. And then Blue Lake is 1,200 people. So therefore, I would take the 3,800 and divide it possibly 2/3 and 1/3. That was my suggestion. So basically thinking that Trinidad would pay 1/3 and Blue Lake would pay 2/3. But in talking with Gabe and also looking over some of these things, there would be the cost of maintaining the police car, the cost of gas. So there's additional costs. So that's why we thought, maybe around 200,000.
Yeah, what I was talking about was that if under the new, well, first of all, let me back up for a second. So our contract we have now is until 2029.
Right.
And we don't indemnify the sheriffs under that contract, correct? They indemnify us.
Our insurance indemnifies the county and the sheriff. The contract was just signed this year, and that's part of why Sarah got concerned and says, hey, we should look at some other models.
Okay, so the contract that runs until 2029, we're indemnifying the county.
Right.
So what I was talking about was there's a reference in his report that this will cost all the member cities more.
Yeah, what he was saying is basically the 50 cities that are part of the JPA that is CIRA, which this would be a separate JPA that's just the 3 cities. But the insurance that we have now that's covering the sheriff's contract, all 50 cities, if there is, let's say, $1 million lawsuit, are going to basically be paying for that $1 million lawsuit.
Well, yeah, but you mentioned they also have to pay through the fees that every member has to chip in.
Right, yeah. So each year we pay X amount of dollars, so that could increase.
They don't know how much, by how much though?
No, each year, actually, every year we have the city of Trinidad, along with all the other 50 cities, are on the board. So we have a board representative, which is usually either myself or Gabe. So it's the city manager or the city clerk. So we'll be meeting again December 12th, and they also meet in May. And at those points, once a year, they go over all of the costs, and then they tell us roughly what the liability costs are changing from year to year.
But now I worry that we're going to confuse folks about the difference. So you're talking about the CIRA, our insurance company, and the members that are part of CIRA. And so let's kind of separate that discussion from what we're talking about tonight, which is a potential, unless I'm missing something.
There's 2 JPAs.
Yeah, because I think people are going to start getting confused about, the JPA is about law enforcement coverage, a kind of a shared services model between 3 cities. And the decision before the council tonight and up for discussion is, do we pursue this or do we not? Is it more of a wait and see how it goes with the other towns? Or does Trinidad want to say, well, we think we want to pursue this and we need to find out more, maybe to do that, right?
Yeah.
But CIRA is not I don't want to get too deep into that, I guess, if we can help it.
I don't think we should get in a big hurry to change what we're doing now with the sheriffs.
Okay.
Principally because of the amount of extra costs it's going to cost. And I'm wondering, has the county been asked, would they reconsider
liability
if they lose Blue Lake and Trinidad because of this new language that they have in their agreement? Is it worth it to them?
It's a good question. We've talked to them about it, about the liability aspect on at least 1 or 2 occasions, and they haven't been willing to budge. I don't know how much they care if Blue Lake and Trinidad opt out, but it's worth it. You're right that it could be a negotiating point, Bryce. I do want to kind of get to, because I recognize that Bryce will most likely be a council member soon, and we will be able to go back and forth with this kind of dialogue. I do have to invoke the Brown Act a bit here, that we do have members of the community. At this point, you're a member of the community, and you need to, if you can kind of state your opinions on the direction, you can ask, we can have some back and forth, but not a tremendous amount. So I'm just trying to kind of focus this in on, what would you suggest we do based on what you know today, and get some other input from members of the community.
I'm trying to get as much information as I could about.
Yes, I understand.
My recommendation, I guess, would be if I was you, if I was in your shoes tonight, I wouldn't vote to change
anything at this time. Okay. That's what I was curious about but based on what you know, because you from the packet, you probably know about as much as we do at this point. And so
I read it very carefully.
Yes, I see that. Thank you. All right, other public comments on this proposal as it stands? All right, I'm going to bring it back to the council. Comments or questions on where you think we should go with this?
I appreciate the option, right? It's always important to explore options. If I remember correctly, the community survey that we did, I think in the summer, showed sort of an improvement in folks' feeling of safety and fewer concerns. I'm also, again, anecdotal. I haven't done an exhaustive look at this, but the reports that we get from Lieutenant McCall every month doesn't seem to be indicating that we're experiencing a surge in safety concerns. Therefore, spending a considerable amount of money in addition to what we're currently doing doesn't really seem to connect. Again, I like the option, but it doesn't seem to be like this is the time to explore expending quite a bit more resources when, in essence, our safety, our feelings of safety seem to be fairly consistently low. I mean, high. So that's just my 2 cents.
I have a question about that, though. If I understood you, the indemnification changes the picture because if we're bearing the burden, if there is a problem across all the towns that are part of this zero, we could suddenly get hit. It isn't like we're going to continue just to pay our 100,000 and get the level of safety we could suddenly be thrown into $1 million.
Well, it wouldn't be that significant because it is split amongst the pool, But still, I mean, technically, there could be a large lawsuit against the city. The time that I've been on the board, they've only dropped one city in the state. And that's because, the too many claims and the way they were running things. They have a lot of problems in that one particular city. But certainly that's something that they take in consideration. And historically, Trinidad has been very low. We haven't had too many issues that have been considered. Hardly any during the 5.5 years I've been here, versus even like Arcata or Eureka, they've had a few issues that have to be addressed because they do go into a closed session where we talk about lawsuits, and unfortunately Trinidad hasn't been one. But yeah, I mean, to me it seems logical that the county and the sheriff would be responsible for the liability because they're the ones that are training the deputies and they're the ones who are managing the deputies. If we as a city, had our chief who was basically, telling the officers what to do and making sure that they have the proper training, then I'd say the liability should be on us. So in a way, it doesn't seem proper that they would shift that liability, and that's what Sarah is saying. But they have already, yeah.
Well,
Can we, okay, if you can be, go ahead.
I can help you.
Brief, I think we're probably gonna come to a conclusion that
Yeah,
you may be happy with, well,
I think Eli will agree with you because in the SERA report, it does note that the main liability would be for defense costs. If a county officer shoots and kills somebody in the city of Trinidad, that's on them, but we would have to defend them in court and maybe spend some money arguing that because they're the one who actually shot the person, that's on them, not us. They may agree to that, so it's not a huge exposure to us, but
That's my
you know, the defense costs to defend somebody, but then if they're found liable, they have to pay. That's how that works.
other councilors, other comments or?
I'll click on that. I think it's, I think one of the things I've heard a lot of people say that would like to have a police car, police officer in the city being able to be helping out if necessary. So I would like to see this, something that gets out to the community and that there is such a thing, that this is out there. So people can give us some feedback. So I think it'd be nice to continue saying that we do have these options and make sure the community knows about it, because it's one of those things that a lot of people have said there are some issues in Trinidad they'd like to make sure they take care of. So I'd like to just make sure that this does get out. I think the idea of postpone, but watching, let's see what happens with Blue Lake and Ferndale, and let people know that this is out here when they have the those continue to be out there, just not that we're not actually pursuing it this time.
So I'm gonna, Ms. Hostler-Cummison has her hands up, so I'm gonna make one brief comment and then go back to public comments, and then we'll bring this to council. But yeah, I agree with you, Jack and Steve. I think, I don't know if what we have today is perfect, but we have a pretty good system with Humboldt County Sheriff and PAC Security. I do think that it's not perfect though, because I still hear people having concerns, and like Jack, I've heard since I got on the council that people want a uniform Trinidad Police Department back. And so I think we should hold on to this idea, based on Bryce's feedback and, all the questions he had. I'm sure that's representative of some of the questions that we want to get answered and others in the community. So, we don't have all the answers tonight, I don't feel. So I think I'm in the camp of maybe not wait and see until it's fully implemented by the other cities, like keep this one on the front burner and see, how it's going, and then kind of opt in along the way. It is twice as much as we're spending today. So I'm cognizant of that as well. So I think I'm in the wait and see a bit as well. So I think everybody's nodding. So let me, Ms. Hostler-Cummison, did you want to weigh in on this one? I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, I wanted to hear Bryce's comments and could not hear his questions, comments. I can hear the council, but I can't hear the person at the podium. If those could be recapped really briefly.
You want to try to do that, Bryce, or?
We'll have the same problem.
Yeah. So with the audio, so I'll tell you what, why don't we will, yes. So Gabe is going to send them to you. Jackie, he's going to email them or put them in comments. And then if you have anything else you want to add, please just come back to us. I know we're going to revisit this. By the sound of things, we'll be revisiting this topic.
Well, I think that, naturally I'm concerned about law enforcement for the Rancheria as well. And, being able to afford a contract with the county is something we're always trying to do. And the problem has been a shortage in available deputies and having the capacity to, dedicate a deputy to the Rancheria. So tribes are also able to enter into JPAs. So I'm very interested in the concept. And I was just trying to hear Bryce's concerns. And we, are continuing to explore opportunities and options for the tribe as well. Thank you. I really feel like we need, if we're going to have hybrid meetings, we really need to have a sound system that works. And for whatever reason, the podium is not, people are not pulling the microphone down, and there's quality control is not there. Thank you.
Okay. And this has come up before, so we really need to work on that. Eli?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment to what Jackie said, since they are looking also at the sheriff, that, you know, possibly down the road, the Joint Powers Authority could include the rancheria as well.
Yeah.
And that'll help cut down the cost for everybody. And it's nice that they're neighbors, so that, you know, between the two of us, we have a little extra protection.
Yeah, and maybe we can go through this, including some of Bryce's comments. We have a rancheria, a G2G with the rancheria.
Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday. And so maybe we can go into review this. Not necessarily, we may not have to be able to add anything, but if we could review it in person, it would be helpful.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, back to the council. Is there a motion be made here?
Yes. I recommend, or I make a motion that we table the entering of a JPA contract concept with, as discussed.
Second.
All right, I'll second that. I think I would like to keep it on the front burner and look at it some more, but for now, I don't think we're ready to make a decision, so we'll defer the decision. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We need a stretch break. Thank you, everyone. We've had some meaty, good discussion topics tonight. I don't want to take a break because I know there are people here who are excited to hear about the next topic. We got a lot of positive feedback. And so the next item is the discussion regarding Saunders Park playground concept. And I think, Councilor Tuttle, you're leading that discussion, or?
Was a few different Trinidad families came to me and said that we don't really have a good playground space here in Trinidad. And I think, well, we have the school next door, and they're telling me that it's closed during the summertime. It's closed during school hours. So, so basically, I came to the idea of perhaps reorganizing Saunders Park and making it a family-friendly park to bring more families from out of town and also here. We in Trinidad make a lot of money in tourism. I feel like this could actually bring more people here and increase perhaps our revenue. But also it just enhances the quality of our lives and children here in town to have a safe space to play during the summer. It would also increase the amount of traffic in the library, the museum, the great little walking trail, and the community garden. I feel that more families knew about that, they use it more. So, yeah, thanks.
And then also the slides are up there if you want to walk through them, or just refer to them in the packet. Do you have a preference, Jack?
Today we're just kind of deciding, do we want to direct staff to work on the idea? It's not we're working with Angela to figure out if this is even an idea that we can even do. So the next step would be, do we want to direct staff to use our time to do it? Yes or no? And then from there, we're going to reach out to the Trinidad Coastal Land Trust and say, we now have the city council's backing. Do you now approve us to maybe reorganize your park? Because it really is their park. And we've had a brief discussion with them last February, and it sounded like they were interested, but they needed our approval to even bring it to their council.
All All right, well, do you want, I know we got a lot of public comments. As I said, everything was positive. Let me open up to, get some public feedback. And these are some of the concepts that you're seeing on the screen. If there's some thoughts or, pros and cons you want to bring forward. I have a hand raised. It looks like Carrie, please go ahead.
Hi there. My name is Carrie Varela. I'm really excited to be coming in as a council member, hopefully in December. And I just wanted to, for my support for this agenda item and to, transform the park into an area that would be great for kids. I am a mom and I've been raising my kids in Trinidad for the last 5 years. And, the playground is a really big issue for moms. And I know basically every mom that I know in the area would be really happy to have another space for our kids to play and to be outside and just enjoy this beautiful town of Trinidad. And I think it would do a lot for our community and for our children. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this project.
Great, thank you. And we look forward to meeting you.
Likewise, I look forward to being with you guys over the next few years.
Yeah, excellent. Other comments from the public? Bryce.
Since I commented on just about everything else, I might as well really my 2 cents on it. To thank Jack for the great work, and you have 100% of my support. In fact, it looks like so much fun. It almost makes me want to have some more kids so I can take them.
Thanks, Bryce. Patty.
Yes.
I'm Patty Questioner, director of the museum, and when the park was first proposed, in between 2000 and 2006, when everything started being built over there, it was Mayor Lynn and Mayor Hyanga both were supporting a senior park because they had so many retired people. And there was a little pushback then, but we didn't have as many children. And from being in the museum most every day, most of the park is being used by transients, and they kind of dominate the scene there. And to have families and children instead would be awfully nice. The bocce ball court was a great idea at Chivi's many years ago, but it really is not utilized very much. And so if that's the biggest space, I suppose, that could be changed. Because of budget concerns early on, we don't have anything like water fountains or restrooms could be an issue with lots of kid use. But I think I guess I'm just saying from somebody who's over there quite a bit and sees every day what is occurring now, to have families and children there enjoying the park would be really wonderful. But yeah, we don't have any electricity, the solar panel idea, if that would work, would be great. No water, restrooms would be the concerns, but the bocce ball would be great if it were being used more, but it really isn't. And so that was kind of an end. And thank you, Jack, for instigating it. I didn't know this was going on. It's kind of cool.
Thanks, Patty. Other comments, please?
This is an item to include as far as pickleball.
Did you want to, Yes, please. So we're also talking about the tennis court and pickleball improvements. Yeah.
I'm Dan Chandler, and I play tennis 3 times a week and have for many years here. A couple of comments about the pickleball. The problem from a tennis player's point of view is that there's a profusion of lines, because there are a bunch of lines for pickleball, and any of them line up with lines that are there for tennis. So it is possible to make them compatible. At Larson, they've chosen colors very wisely. And that's what we would ask of you, is that you try and replicate what Larson has done there, so that we don't get confused by it, and they don't get confused by the different lines. It's not easy to do. It's sort of fine gradation, but that would be the main thing. But also add a couple of other pickleball considerations. I don't know how many of you have heard pickleball. I say heard rather than play, because it's a very noisy sport. You know, they're hitting a hard ball with a hard bat. And I think there might be some concerns from neighbors. I don't know for sure. There would definitely be concerns like in the summer when we had the classical music festival. You wouldn't want pickleball players playing at the same time as the classical music was, because you would hear that very loudly. So that's one concern. I have no idea how you would address that. Another would be if there are going to be a lot more players here. For tennis, we pretty much know who the groups are, and we coordinate so that we don't end up here and having to wait for an hour. Frustrating if you make a plan to play tennis at 10 and you arrive at 10 and somebody else just got there at 10, then you have to wait until 11 or decide not to play. So if there's a lot more traffic here, it would be great if we could have some kind of a scheduling system. There are online scheduling systems that are available. It might be on the city website with a sign, sign up and how to do it. That would help a lot. And the other thing, another tennis player just texted me and suggested that it might be possible, and I have no idea because I don't know how much the grant is. But you want the families and kids at the park, and it might be possible to replace the bocce court in part with a pickleball court. So you would, I think most studies have shown that if you have some people might consider less desirable, that if you have a lot of traffic of people who are more desirable, then that sort of pushes out some of the less desirable people in public spaces. So having pickleball as well as the kids' playground might be a good idea for that area where the bocce court is at this point. Only really one more point. I think it was 3 years ago. This grant has been a long time coming. We tennis players said we would pay for a wind screen on the end and to the gate. And that never happened. I've never understood why not. During the spring, it gets very windy, and in the afternoons, almost any time during the year, it's pretty windy. You know, when you're standing on the court and your balls are moving away from you, that's sort of my indication it's time to go home because they curve too much in the air also. So we would still really like to have the windscreen up. The only possible objection I've heard is that it blocks sight. You know, so you don't want things happening on the court that you can't see. But I mean, would be very limited just to the front and first quarter. But if you've ever been to the Larson, and if you haven't, I recommend it just in terms of pickleball too. You know, you can stand in the parking lot at Larson and see all the way down, it's a couple hundred yards past 3 courts and past the fence to the backboard there. So it's perfectly possible to have a windscreen that is effective as they do. But it's transparent enough so that it doesn't block, you know, your sharp patrol or whatever, see what is happening. So I think that's pretty much it. I hope it happens soon because the crack in the court is progressive.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thanks, great suggestions. Eli wants to make a quick comment.
Yeah, yeah, there are really good suggestions. I appreciate that. I did want to note that there's what's called noise reducing brackets, and we could just require those. So it's for pickleball, yeah. So that this way, you know, when you hit the ball on the ground, it's going to make some noise, but hitting and making the contact between the ball and the racket is the worst.
Yeah.
And if you have the noise reducing racket, it'll be quieter.
That could definitely help. And then also a suggestion that are on the table, then also to move the pickleball to Saunders Park if there was room. And so I think, you know, there's a limited amount of space, but I have a comment online. Lisa and Taylor Lefevre have been asking to comment or had their hand raised, and then we'll go to the room. Lisa and Taylor, did you want to go ahead and make a comment?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Yes.
Hey, yeah, so we live here in Trinidad, down on Underwood, kind of past Jack, and we have 2 young children and are obviously in huge support of the project of the park going forward in Saunders Park. And we don't really attend that area at all with our kids. And so if it was repurposed, we think it would probably be a huge success for the community, which is obviously a growing community of where we have, I think, 8 children on Underwood alone, and under 10, I would say. And so we would definitely use it. And with the tourism going on, and I think a lot of families that are visiting would use the park and appreciate it. And I also was going to say that the pickleball court is going to be a great addition to the community. It's a huge growing sport. It keeps people active and healthy. And if you do decide to move it down by the Saunders Park, which the last commenter was suggesting, I just would hope that you guys could at least do the lines in the tennis court currently so that we could get that started ASAP. That's my comment.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks for the comment.
Bye.
And Victoria's at the podium. Go ahead.
I'd love to hear the enthusiasm about Saunders Park being used for children. I think it would really enliven our whole community. I also have to say, I really like the idea of Cheapford being a pickleball court, because of course I live in a place where I can hear the tennis players, and they're nice. But it might be a little disconcerting having the amount of noise from the pickleball court for neighbors, not only that are behind there. And I actually think the other location sounds like we could do something for them. If you want to have people, it sounds very lively, and like it would be a really good place for it. Something 25. Okay. And I just wanted to say something. We are really blessed and lucky to be here in Trinidad with so many wonderful people. But I do wonder, you know, I think we're going into times which may be defining. I think we have to be careful about who on earth is desirable and who we call undesirable. I think we just have to hold on this one, whatever our faith or non-faith, because we do come from an ethical Western cultural background and others who are diverse background. I think would be wise to have gratitude that we're here. But not everybody had the same opportunities. And it only really takes for most Americans, I believe, to be short of $400 to be broke, you know, and run into broke if they can't make it for a certain month. So I think we should keep that in mind. And maybe in having this wonderful lively Saunders Park with the children, available for it, who knows? We might have a real transformation.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
agreed. Thank
I think
you.
we should ask ourselves whether or not we're believers of a sort of faith, what Krishna, Moses, Jesus, Buddha, and other great spiritual leaders, you know, would how they had a vision, and maybe we should aspire to that a little bit because we are very lucky to be here. You know, we have wonderful people from our staff, wonderful people who are on the city council, planning commission, and you know, that's our good fortune. Sometimes we have to give a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, I'm going to, I see no more public comments on this. Oh, sorry, one more.
And I feel like that I am aligned with a lot of the comments that have been made, so I'm gonna stay pretty brief because, you know, there are a lot of kids in town and the school is not available, as much people like to point out, unless you want to teach your kid to jump a fence and actually trespass property there, which is not available during the week, during the summer. You know, I see a lot of people come into town, tourists, they're hanging out, they want to know where the park is, where they can take their family, that's non-existent. And I think part of the economic growth that you were talking about earlier on, a park would definitely help benefit that because it would keep people in town versus having to drive 15, 20, however many minutes away just to get to McKinleyville. And then afterwards, the family's hungry, they want to go shopping, they want to do these different things, it's all going that way. You know, being here, you can easily walk across the street. There's things that I didn't even realize were over in that area, and I've been here for 14 years. I have 2 children, and it's been definitely a topic of conversation of not being able to bring the community together with children. Because everyone thinks about tourism and people who are retired, which I completely understand, but there's also this entire basis of families that are not able to really congregate in a mutual area. And the fact that it was brought up, said 20 years ago or 24 years ago, and nothing has even come of it, you know, I'll probably have grandkids before this thing even happens, you know, so I hope not, but my kids are 9 and 3, so I don't know how long it takes to even get something like that in effect. But I feel like it pushes out the people that are coming in to build the community. And, you know, it helps the sense of community of people being able to get together in the area to enjoy that. I want you to be here, as mentioned, and I think developing that area and bringing more people to the museum, the library, and just keeping people in town would be beneficial for everyone.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to bring it back to the council. I mean, I think it's a fabulous idea to pursue. How's everybody?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. It sounds like there's been a need. It's been discussed in the past, and probably the sooner we can work on developing some proposals, the better. So, and I really want to thank Councilor Tuttle for bringing it forward as an idea. Absolutely. Seeing that through. Yeah. Do we need to make a motion, or where do you want to take this?
Yeah, well, certainly some kind of direction, but I did want to weigh in a little bit. Currently, Saunders Park is also utilized for Taste of Trinidad.
Yeah.
And also some other cities have put on like a small concert or whatever in the summer. Sometimes they have a series of them. You know, and some other entertainment could be like a puppet show or whatever. So what I'm getting at is where the current configuration of the park is with the sidewalk area and the grassy area. To me, it seems like that's a nice gathering point for the city. And ideally, if we can place the playground as we looked at before by the hillside, and then possibly utilizing the court, the bocce ball court. It seems that this way we could have both uses going on rather than possibly taking over the park and creating, you know, like a playground basically. I mean, so I'm just saying direction from the council would also be helpful as to, you know, how this would proceed as far as creating a playground that would take over a good part of the park or it would be off to the side. I don't know what you were thinking, Jeff.
Yeah, so in an email with Angela and Trevor, or city planner, Trevor mentioned that it would have to be professionally designed because it would be a space that the public would come to. So we would have to have it designed for the whole park. And I would encourage, this the community to come together, all the different families, and we could, and all the different interest groups out there to come together and find out what works in this. Let's put it all together, put all of our ideas in one place, and then have that designer bring it all together and really make it a part of the whole community.
Yeah,
Not
that makes sense.
Not just a little playground in the corner, but yeah, make it so everyone.
Yeah, we need to see the conceptual design, which would be kind of the next phase. Maybe there's a couple of alternatives or, and people
But
can get
today, we're
input.
just really directing staff to then move forward, and then we could reach out to the Trinidad Coastal Land Trust. So we could put it onto their agenda because they still need to approve the idea of modifying the park because they are the owners of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I would make a motion to proceed with the council's approval to explore the alternatives for a public playground at Saunders Park.
I'll second that.
And there's a second. All those in favor? Aye. So that passes unanimously. Thank you again, Jax. Great work. I'm gonna go to item number 5. This is the discussion decision to begin the recruitment process to fill expiring planning commissioner term. So anyone who's here this evening who wants to be a planning commissioner, we have opportunities for you. Dave or Eli, do you want to cover really quick what we're looking for?
Yeah, I can get started. Maybe if Dave wants to add to it. So we have a total of 5 planning commissioners, and the 2 of them, their terms are expiring in December. So the intent is to advertise. The 2 can run again, and also any other interested members of the community could run for those 2 seats. The planning commissioners, the majority need to be city residents, but up to 2 could be from the greater Trinidad area. So, Gabe, is there anything else to add?
That's it.
Okay.
I think the only thing was there might be the commissioners that are rolling off. It's not Chris and Tom. I think it's Tristan and Tom. Is that right, Gabe?
Yeah, I corrected the packet.
Oh, you did? Okay, I'm sorry. I may have the older.
Tristan and Tom Hopkins, outside city limits. One of the 2 that are currently seated outside the city limits. So in the event Tom Hopkins wants to rerun, he can apply. But there can be more than 2. And if in-city residents apply and there's enough to fill the seats, that needs to be taken into consideration by the council.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the council on this? Any questions from the public or comments? All right, I'll bring it back to the council then. I'm going to go ahead and move to authorize staff to begin the recruitment process to solicit public interest in serving on the planning commission and bring letters of interest back to the council for appointment in January.
Second.
And there's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then the next topic is the November general election and the results from said election, I believe.
I'll be brief with this one. We're only, what are we, a week and a few days in? And I just put this in there because, you know, we've had some people ask. Of course, we've got 2 council members' seats that are going to be filled. And the tax measure was on the ballot as well. I'm not jumping to any conclusions. We're just watching the weekly results published by the county elections department every Friday. They put out their weekly results. So I have a link, I believe, at least in the notice that I sent regarding this meeting. So people, if they don't already know, they can go to the county's website and check on the weekly results of Measure L. But I think on the, was it the first week, it was approximately 70%
Right.
in support
Yeah.
of the measure, which is pretty good, which is pretty much in line where it was when it was approved 4 years ago. So that is positive news for anyone in support of measure. That is the only report. Next month, what we're going to do is hopefully 30 days following the election, the county elections has to certify the results. And I believe that date does fall in line, that we'll have it early enough for our council meeting to be able to swear in the new members. There's been times where we waited till January to swear council members in, but in this particular case, I think in the last couple of years ago, we just swore them in December, and the outgoing council members said their goodbyes, and the new members were seated right away. There's no reason to wait if it's uncontested. So if that is the case, and this council is okay with that, then that's what we will do. We will hold the swearing in ceremony in December.
That sounds good to you, Jack and Steve?
I mean, I thought it was already decided. I thought some other races were decided that went uncontested. They're like, look, we're calling this thing. You know, it's statistically impossible for a write-in candidate to exceed those that have been voted on. So I would, yeah, I see no reason not to proceed with the December meeting.
Election.
Okay, all right. And do we, any public comments, I guess, on the November election results? Oh, I thought you were standing up. Okay.
I do have a question about item 4. You guys addressed the playground component of it, but what about the pickleball and the tennis ball?
Yeah, we took input on that. Good point, Bryce. Were we supposed to, I thought we were just taking community input on it, or was there a vote or further action needed from the council?
Yeah, the purpose of having it on there was really to update you where we're at. So that is part of the Parks grant. So it's estimated that the cost would be ballpark, I think, $62,000. The Parks bond fund is like $170,000. The remainder of it would be utilized for the boardwalk. So anyway, tonight was the first time I heard of possibly doing the pickleball court in Saunders Park. So I don't know about the feasibility of that.
Right.
But that's something that could be considered. We were considering just utilizing the tennis court area, and I was calling it a racket court, so that it would end up being tennis and pickleball. They're both racket sports. One of the advantages to having both of them located by town hall is that, like, for instance, in the case of balls or even rackets, sometimes people ask us if we have something, and we do, and they can borrow it. And the same thing could happen like with the pickleball, is that, you know, we have a couple of noise reducing rackets. And I certainly think we should require that they use the noise reducing rackets, because it is close to the neighbors. And in any way that we can cut back on the sound would be helpful. And then I think it was a great idea looking at Larson Park that was mentioned today. So, we could see how they've done the lines there. And then, of course, we'll be going out to bid at the beginning of the year for that project. And then when we do go out to bid, for instance, Fortuna has recently put in pickleball courts and redid their tennis court. And they were very happy with that. So that's one of the contractors that we'll reach out to. And then Arcata, I think, is another one where we can have that contractor we'll reach out to. And in the meantime, we'll advertise it so that anyone can bid. But we just want to make sure that some of these other firms that have done pickleball and racket court do bid so that we have more to choose from.
We may need to bring this back because it seems like we're having a lot of conversation and we're past the agenda item now. I don't know how that works, but usually now the people that wanted to talk about it aren't here.
Right.
So we've taken their feedback. So I may suggest that we put this as a future agenda item and revisit and go into more detail. Katie, do you want to add?
I'm concerned that we're going to buy ourselves a parcel of trouble with the noise, even with the noise reducing rackets. I'd like to see total investigation about that. I've never seen a pickleball court, so I have no idea, but everyone keeps mentioning noise.
Yeah.
And bam, 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 bam.
Well, one of the advantages.
Just to say again, you guys, we're going into detail on this again. It was agendized.
You can put it on.
I apologize that I didn't catch that. Thank you, Bryce, for catching it, that we didn't go into the detail we needed to. And I'd like to suggest we put it as a future agenda item.
We can put it on. If you want, we can put it on December.
Yeah.
And continue.
Yeah, just continue. Let's call it a continuation of.
And then in the meantime, since it was mentioned about the possibility of Saunders Park.
Right.
So, think about that. And then if other people in the community can weigh in, and of course, we've got Patty here who is right by there. So, maybe because, for instance, we've got the library there. And the library is a spot that you want to have quiet.
Yeah.
And then maybe a pickleball court there is not an ideal place.
Yes.
To add on that, when I was talking to Coastal Land Trust, that parcel of land was not made to have active activity. So even the playground, you couldn't have a soccer, you couldn't have baseball. And I feel like that's part of
a competition.
It wouldn't, you can have active sporting events on that.
And just to be clear, all we did tonight was really, in essence, authorize to communicate with the land trust. We're interested.
Right.
That's all we did.
Right.
Right. We're not paving any tennis courts tonight or anything like that. Our decision was, do we want this for our community? We don't own the land. We don't have any control over the land, right?
Yeah.
But that's the best place we've got to go. So I don't think we have to worry about, design concepts or anything tonight.
Right.
Tonight's decision was, hey, someone go to the land trust and say, we want to talk.
Right.
But I agree
Well
with
said.
Cheryl that we're already that ship has sailed. So we need to.
Okay, so, and Bryce, was that, you had your hand raised, was that the point you were gonna make, or?
Just real briefly, I was getting on what Katie was saying is, you ought to just get some decibel information about how many decibels does pickleball generate, and then what does that compare to as far as other sounds?
Yeah, so noise is.
Friends of mine who play
ongoing
pickleball
concern.
say those noise canceling paddles are effective. So to really honor the neighbors that are right behind that, we
Yeah, so maybe we try it both ways, but that's part of the discussion we can have in December. Okay, so future agenda items, definitely tennis, pickleball. Any other future agenda items that we want to tee up right now? Otherwise, send them to staff or myself. Any public agenda, any agenda items that the public would like to see us discuss in the future? I see nothing. So with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Recording stopped. Just a note to everybody, as Katie mentioned before, we have an animal advisory